Welcome in, builders. This week we're taking a look at Vanheim, a rival of man. In the grand scale of things, the change from Dominions 5 to 6, some nations definitely benefited, and some nations definitely did not. And I think that Vanheim is one of the nations that did not come out of that transition very well. Let's take a look at them and see why I think that is. Vanheim is a land of misty moors and bitter forests. Humans compose most of the population, but the rulers of the land belong to the tall and innately magical race known as the Vanir. The Vanir once fought against the giants of Jotunheim, but with the coming of man, they have turned their attention elsewhere. Now, only a precious few of the Vanir remain, and humans are no longer slaves. Humans compose the basic infantry units of Vanheim. The Vanir have blessed some loyal humans with superior fighting skills and the ability to enter a state of wild rage or wolven shape. The Vanir are masters of illusion who fight while mounted on exceptionally fast horses. Female Vanir are called Valkyries and have the ability to fly. This ability was a gift from a dead god who used them as messengers of death. During those days, blood was sacrificed. The old ways may not have been used in ages, but still the oldest of the Vanir remember how to sate nature with blood. The Vanir are skilled sailors and can sail oceans. So very similar to what we know about the Vanheim and the Vanir from early age. And like many of the mystical races, we've just kind of eroded away some, and it's hurt. It's frankly hurt quite a bit here. Let's check out their national features. As a race, we are able to do ocean sailing. That's always nice for mobility. We can trace income across oceans. That means that we do not need a contiguous land connection if we could sail across to a castle or fortress to collect the taxes. We have some flying troops. We have some illusions, and we prefer cold scales of +1. For military, we have heavy infantry, skin shifters, Valkyries, berserkers, and Vanir. This sounds really good, but we'll look at some problems that they've got here. For magic, we're pretty good at air, and we have some glamour, earth, and a tiny bit of blood, fire, and death. Our priests are average, and we can do blood sacrifices. We build standard forts of the era. That means we can build up to castles. Now, all of this sounds pretty good. The problem comes in the quality of our troops versus, frankly, other human nations, really, at this point, and the cost of our research, which is just out of control. Again, we'll get to that in a second. You can tell I'm frustrated with this nation, I think. For sites, we have Valhalla. This allows us to get our cap-only units. We get an air gem and a glamour gem. And we have the Halls of Endvar, which gives us our Dwarven Smiths, our Fabors, and 3 Earth Gems. So gem income-wise, we're actually pretty good. Lots of Earth is handy, and having air and Earth and Glamour all have good items that we can craft. And we have a Dwarven unit that is pretty good at crafting. So that's at least something that is going relatively right for us. Units and Sacreds. For units, we have some okay troops on our human side, and we have a couple Vanir troops that are still left. First up, we have 2 different versions of Huskarl. These are humans. We are wearing a ringmail hauberk, an iron cap, and a shield, so okay on the protection. We have 11. We have an axe that we are okay with. We have 10 attack, and we do 18 damage, so that's pretty decent. We also have a javelin to throw. We got 2 of those. This guy's okay. He has 10 morale, so for a low-end troop, at least this isn't like a militia or something. For cost, 10, 12, 9 is pretty even across the board. That's not too bad. Other than that, though, human stats basically across the board. Next, we have the Huskarl. This is the same as the previous guy, but he's traded out his axe for a spear. If I was going to get one of these 2, I think I would prefer to use the axe. This is a spear that only has 13 piercing damage. I think in my head, I want to mainly be recruiting to fight people in about 16 protection armor in middle age. You know, obviously your mileage may vary depending on who you're fighting, but 10 attack, 13 pierce versus 10 attack, 18 slashing. Unless you're going to get repelled ridiculously bad with the axe, I think I'd prefer that. Next up, we have a Hirdman. This is, again, human troop. We are more heavily armored. We have a chainmail halberd, a half helmet, and a shield. We are using a spear, although at least we now have 11 attacks, so we're slightly better at it. This would be my troop of choice if I need to repel something. Again, though, only 13 piercing damage. That's really feeling pretty iffy. As a generic line troop, these guys are okay. There's a length 3 weapon, 12 defense, 16 protection. That's all right. They have a shield. They're just aggressively mediocre, essentially. Next up, we have Hirdman with a broadsword. Again, even though this is the shorter weapon, I do like these guys a little bit more. We are armored the same way, but now we have 13 defense and 12 attack with a 16 slashing damage. So not quite as much as the early axe troop, but much better armor and stats for it. However, we're now paying for that. 12 gold, 22 resources, 14 recruitment points. This is not a super cheap unit, and 22 resources isn't the worst, but this isn't the best unit either. Like I said, 16 is kind of what I consider like the quintessential middle-aged troop. So this is him, but he doesn't have anything else going for him. He could be repelled. He only has 11 morale, so that's pretty repellable. 13 defense is fine, but nothing amazing. Again, just aggressively average here. Next up, we have the Einhir. This is okay. This is a slightly high human stat line. In fact, pretty good for a human. He's wearing the chainmail halberd and a half helmet, so we have 16 protection, no shield though, but he's dual wielding. We have the best of the broadsword and the axe. Why have one when you can have both? And so we have 18 slashing damage or 20 slashing damage on a 11 and 10 attack respectively. We've moved up to higher strength. We have 12 strength and 12 HP. We have ambidextrous, which lowers the penalty for dual wielding, so that's pretty nice. Keeps those attacks pretty high. And we have a very high berserk +5. These guys are not bad for that. That's going to give you a 16 and a 15 attack with 23 and 25 damage. Very respectable there. But we're still a human chassis. When we go berserk, our protection will raise. It'll go up to, let's call it about 20, just how that's going to stack up. So that's pretty good. But we only have human HP, so it's a decent chance that we just A, die, or B, we take a horrific affliction before we go berserk. Yeah, they're okay. With some buffs, I think these guys are pretty decent. If you could give them a protection buff beforehand, and then that stacks up with their berserk, that would be pretty good. Something like Fog Warriors, we'll talk about that again later, could be pretty good. I think this is your guy of choice if you need to chop through lots and lots of human-ish infantry. He hits hard enough to break through that like middle-aged 16 target, and even hard enough once he berserks to do some of the big, heavy armor people of the era. What he's not going to do is the heaviest armor. I think the next unit is going to be a better choice for that. But we can get 6 attacks out per square, and that's pretty good. And they're good attacks coming out, too. So definitely has a place there. Next, we have what I would say is probably our best troop, the Skin Shifter. This is a non-sacred werewolf unit. High human stats, but you pay a lot to get this. 25 gold, 7 resources, 36 recruitment points. That's really pricey. Oftentimes in my practice games, I kind of got some berserkers and some of these, and I would just basically try to get my recruitment points and my resources down to 0, and so I just even those out with whichever troop I was having extra resources to get. These guys, 11 attack isn't the greatest, but they hit for 24. They're also using a two-handed weapon, so if you buff their strength, they benefit more from that. They have regeneration 10. That is not bad. They sure would like something to protect them, because with only 6 protection, there's a decent chance that the first big hit that hits them is going to take them over to wolf form. And we'd prefer, I think, to stay in human form as long as we can with our greatsword. When we go over to our wolf form, we get a little bit bigger and we have more attacks, but I think the two-handed sword is the better of the two. They also come with force survival that can help with map movement a little bit if you need it. What else to say about these guys? Shapeshifting is really nice. That means you, generally speaking, will survive multiple combats because you'll go to wolf form where you have a little bit more HP and you keep regenerating. That's pretty handy. For me, this is my main troop, but he's definitely going to need magic support to be very good. I think if I don't have magic support, these guys aren't terrible, but for a line troop, I think I'd drop down to like broadsword Herdman, probably. Hard to say. There is quite a price difference. 12, 22, 14, 25, 7, 36. So it also just depends on what you have available for resources. Next up, we have the Fey Boar. This is a cap only. I guess I should back up here. Both the Einhir and the Skin Shifter are not cap only. That definitely helps them a lot. That means out of any of our forts, we can get essentially any of our infantry. So at least we keep our options open. Going up to the Fey Boar, this is a cap only unit and an interesting one. 100 gold, 1 resource, 30 recruitment points. Very high morale at 18. He's a trampler. Good magic resistance for an animal. He's got 14. A little bit of protection, but not great. Okay HP. Size 4, so we can trample human-sized troops. What makes him good is the combination of high morale and immortality. That's pretty good. Generally speaking, now, unfortunately, these don't berserk. I would love it if they did, but they have high enough morale. It's unlikely that they'll run away. They'll probably just get killed. But when they do, they're immortal and will reappear in your capital after a couple months. The other big bonus here is one of these guys will give you 100 supply bonus. That is absolutely excellent for keeping an army fed and on the move. I mean, it's going to be difficult for you to be able to not feed an army with, let's say, 5 of these guys. Another thing of note here is these are not undisciplined. These are smart banking. And that means I could take 5 of these and put them on guard commander. So if I don't want them running off and fighting, I just want them for the supplies. Or as a meat shield, let's say people are dropping flyers on me. 5 of these protecting a commander is going to buy you a lot of time. Now, will they kill the things that drop on you? Debatable. They probably not going to trample, and trample I think is their better killing option. But they'll buy a lot of time for you. So overall, a technical piece, but a very useful one. Very nice for a nation that doesn't have native nature magic to have just solve supply issues. Next up, we have 2 cap-only sacreds. First, we have the Valkyrie, cap-only, of course. I believe she's exactly the same as Early Age. 45 gold, 15 resources, 29 recruitment points. We have a Sacred Flyer with good stealth that has glamour and spirit sight. All good things there. She's wearing a chainmail cuirass, an iron cap, and has a shield. So 13 protection, that's not terrible. 16 defense is pretty good. I think the main benefit here is we're going to hold and attack rear while we have some sort of solid front line tie up the main army. The downside here is this is the same unit that we had in Early Age. It hasn't gotten better, but a lot of things have got better in Middle Age. So there'll be better bodyguards. There might be more armored leadership in the back. So I think just in the scale of things, these aren't as good as they were in Early Age necessarily. That being said, they're not terrible or anything. We do hit with a 14 piercing. That's a little iffy. We have a really good attack, so we'd like to do repelling. That could be an option to help boost our survivability. And we do have those glamours, so they're not bad, but they also are not super duper powered. I tend to see attrition in these unless I get really, really clean drops on the leadership. I think these are very bless dependent. Second cap only is we have a van. This is the stereotypical unarmored horse elf cavalry. They can be pretty good as long as the horse isn't getting hit, or you've spent a lot of your bless keeping this darn horse alive. Of the two, I guess it really is going to depend on what you took for your bless. I think I like the Valkyrs better. then I like the Van. Being able to hold and fly into the rear is better than hold and attack rear. Um, they are sacred. They do have glamour. They have skilled rider, but this darn horse, it doesn't matter that you have 17 protection when you take a crossbow bolt and die. The attack is nothing to write home about, and just being completely unarmored is just unacceptable, basically. If this was ethereal, even then, like, I don't know. I don't know. And having to buy ethereal for them is even oofier. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of this unit. I don't think they're miserable. And if you're okay with an unarmored light cavalry, these are all right. But you're paying for a javelin you're probably not going to use. The rider's only at 13 protection, and his horse is likely to die. I just don't know if it's there. I just don't know if it's there. So overall, a pretty disappointing line, I would say. They're okay, aggressively average, all right, but requires magic support, and okay, but very bless dependent. So none of these units I'm just like salivating over. Now, with magic support, I do think these are excellent troops, and I think these are what we're going to lean on to make it through. And like I said, it is nice. This boar is a very usable troop, and even if nothing else, you can just use him for supply. I like that. But in an age with crossbows and heavy cavalry and very heavy infantry, there's just nothing here that I'm like super excited about. Like, man, I wish you still had glamour on some of these troops. That would really make these a lot better. But we just don't, unfortunately. Heroes, commanders, and prophet. For heroes, we have two. We have the Einhir. This is the leadership version of one of those berserkers. He's got 14 HP, but he does have berserk plus 8. If you get this guy, I don't know, throw him into combat. There's not much else. He doesn't have any magic or anything. He's not a stupendous leader. I don't know. Maybe you found some random magic items, give it to him and let him go to town. Second, we have a Vanadrot. This is a good leader. He brings in death that we don't have in abundance, and he has, I think, the highest random death we can get. So 3 air, 2 death, 2 glamour, 2 blood, 2 priest level. Pretty decent. He is a good leader, and he has inspirational. He has glamour. His weakness, again, his horse is unarmored. If you get this guy, he's probably going to do sight searching and some crafting. He may see a little bit of combat, but I think you want to definitely keep him safe. He also can do our Summon Valkyrie combat spell, which is not easy for us to do natively, so that would be another use for him. For commanders, we have a Scout. This is your standard human Scout, 35 gold to recruit. He does come with mountain and forest survival and is stealthy. He's totally fine, definitely usable. Nice to have a native Scout. We have a Hearse. This is a 75 leadership, 15 protection leader. That's nothing to write home about. He's okay with his broadsword, and he does have some javelins. Not too much to say about this guy. He's okay. Next up, we have a Vanheim. This guy hurts a lot. 225 gold for a Air 1, Glamour 1, Priest 1 with 9 research. So he is efficient on research, but 9 is very slow. Plus, unless you have some way of boosting, he's a pretty terrible combat mage. Now, if you can get Storm up and summon Storm power, he's okay. If you can get Twilight up and do some glamour stuff, he's okay. But until you can get one of those battlefield boosters up and running, these are not very good. Also note, only 75 leadership for 235 gold. And you need a temple, and you need a lab to be able to recruit them. Oof. I don't know about this. Next up, we have a Van Jarl. Now, better stats down here, but 440 gold, 19 resources, 2 recruitment points. Air 2, Glamour 1, Blood 1, Priest 2. So already we have a very wide pathing, and you're probably not going to use half of these paths in any given combat. So you're overpaying for what you're going to use. He has 162 gold a year for 13 research, so now we are not efficient. Air 2 is usable, and this is probably what I'm going to have as my main combat mage. Glamour's okay, especially again if you can get those battlefield boosters up and running. The blood, well, he's our spammable blood access, but blood 1's not amazing. This is a Sabbath supporter, I suppose. He's your blood hunter by necessity. He can do some blood sacrificing, so that's something, I guess. As an exceedingly light thug, you can do some self-buffing and get in there. It's going to be very bless dependent. We'll talk about that when we get to blesses, but you're probably going to have to take something that keeps his horse alive. So you're looking at ethereal or maybe hard skin or Stygian flesh. I don't know. These horses, man. These horses. Could they have not at least put some leather barding on? That would take a little of the sting out at least. Overall, probably your combat mage by necessity, but man, 440 gold for a combat mage hurts. Next up, we have a cap only. This is our Dwarven Smith. Now, he is not sacred. 11 research for 156. That stings. That stings. He does come in with Earth 2 and a random 110% of Fire, Air, Earth, Death, Glamour. So quite wide pathing. Normally that's pretty bad, but he can use Master Smith to bump that up a level to craft better items. So this is mainly a crafting unit. You're probably going to need to spam recruit them. They are only 195 gold compared to 235 here. So even though these are a little bit more efficient, you're kind of paying for it compared to the dwarf. He has dark vision. He has mountain survival. As mentioned, he is a master smith. So this means that he just counts as one path higher in anything he has for the purposes of crafting. So your Earth 2 guy, for example, can craft the Earth Power boots, even though those are Earth 3 items. That's pretty nice. That's pretty handy. He also brings in some paths that we don't have good access to, aka Death and Fire. I think you will want to get out there and do some site searching with these for those other paths, because we're going to need to do crafting and summoning, I think, to help bolster up our nation. But man, 156 gold per year is not very efficient. Not very efficient, unfortunately. Finally, we have a Vanheim. This is a cap-only recruitment. Note, he is 595 gold, 20 resources, 4 recruitment points. He is Air 2, Glamour 2, Blood 1, Priest 2. So, again, like, I so wish that we had one guy who was like Air 2, Blood 1, and a different guy who was Glamour 2, Blood 1, because you're overpaying almost no matter what. You're not using half of your paths. That being said, we can get into Sabbaths, so we can do Divine Blessing if we need to. We can do Storm relatively easy. We could do Twilight or anything like that pretty easily. Blood Slaves are going to be at a premium, but you can get a few to get some Sabbaths up and running. You wouldn't want to use him for research, but 224 a year for 17 is very inefficient. For random paths, we have 110% of Air, Earth, Death, Glamour, Blood. If you get a Blood 2, that's going to be one of your higher blood people. He could do some of the rituals that you otherwise can't reach. He also would be a not efficient, but he would be your best blood hunter. That hurts a lot, let me tell you. I did like to get a Blood 2 guy and have him be my site searcher, so we can do 222 for searching. And there are a few blood sites that give blood slave income, and you would sure like to get those, because it really sucks having these very, very expensive mages out doing blood hunting. I will say that at least they are stealthy with glamour, so the enemy is not going to be able to catch these guys very easily, but that doesn't protect them from events and assassination attempts from blood hunting, unfortunately. So overall, okay, but overpriced mages for a nation that badly needs mage support for combat. This is where I would say the changes from 5 to 6 hurt us the hardest. These are so overpriced. Like, If this was 150 gold, I would still be grousing about it a little bit. And that is 85 gold discount from where he's currently at. The Van Jarl as our main combat mage, at 300, I don't think I would even be like super happy about it. Yeah, this is just way too wide pathing. Like, even if, let's say, you need this guy to do blessing, bless, summon courage is probably what'll go off, personal mist form, and you're out of scripting. Like, that sucks. That sucks a lot. Now, maybe you could come up with a thug build. We did something similar in early era. However, as of this recording, there was a patch recently, and they raised the price of fear on blesses. So we can't get away with the fear bless we used in early age because it's more expensive now. That has hurt these guys pretty badly here. Yeah, we are just so overpriced. We badly need research, and we don't have great research mages. This is a nation that would love to find an efficient researcher. We're cold, but we would even take lizard shaman or sages or Amazons, just anything that's efficient researchers, we would absolutely love. Also, while we have what looks to be kind of wide pathing, two of these are essentially on our dwarves and not on our main combat people. So we really have air and glamour and earth and a sprinkle of these other things. So we're also vaguely predictable, and I don't know. I'm just not impressed with this lineup up here, unfortunately. Who would I make my prophet? This is a little bit of a hard one. A hearse is what you start with, so he will probably be your first prophet. As I always say, I don't like putting prophet on expensive mages, but here, I mean, maybe we do it here. At least you would have stealthy and glamour. You'd be able to run around pretty quickly. They're relatively good map move. I didn't mention that. 26 map move is pretty good. Same with on our sacreds. We don't have a dis, so we don't have a flying leader for Valkyries. That is very unfortunate. That'd be another area that could have helped us out a little bit. If we had a dis or dis equivalent that could fly these around, that would make an excellent profit. I don't know up here. I think, like I said, I think your hearse is your first one probably, and then I think you probably move to a Vanadrot or a Van Jarl as your prophet. Very unfortunate there. National items and spells. For national items, we have no national items. I will note here, in the most recent Dominions patch as of this recording, they've added a lot of national item discounts to nations, so make sure you double check and see if maybe there's anything that has a discount for you. Here, I noted that Dwarven Hammers now has item cost reduction for Vanheim. I don't think this was the case before, but I couldn't swear to that. So just note in this and any other Dominions video, there may be some more item cost reductions that are not mentioned. For spells, we have 4 national spells, and they are all in Conjuration. We have Sloth of Bears for 6 nature gems, costs a nature 2 mage. We can't do that natively. We have Awakened Dwelgar at Conjuration 4. It requires a Death 2. That is our hero only and 12 Death Gems. At Conjuration 6, we have Summon Valkyries. Do note, this is not a ritual. This is a combat spell. So we have a few units that could luck into this, but it's not going to be super duper common. Also remember, when you summon them in, you're going to want to try to bless them somehow. So that could be very tricky unless you're summoning them on like turn 1 and you're spamming blesses on turn 1 and 2 probably, just depending on when these actually hit the field. So that could be a little bit tricky. And at Conjuration 8, we have Summon Dwarf of the 4 Directions. This requires Air 4, Earth 3, and 62 Air Gems. This is something you'd have to design your pretender to do. Let's take a look at those units. Our Sloth of Great Bears. It's a chunky boy. He's got 40 HP. That's not terrible. 2 decent damage attacks that aren't miserable. Do note he is Mountain Survival, Forest Survival, Animal, Undisciplined. 13 morale's not terrible. They have 3.6 siege strength. That is actually vaguely interesting to us. We don't have the best siege strength, so if you have a nature 2 person and you have some nature, we don't need to worry about supply items because of the Fey Boar. So this is an okay dump for some nature gems. I don't hate this here. I do see a use for it. Our Drog. This is the undead. It's amphibious. It has fear 5. Cold resist 25, poison resist 25. It is undead, doesn't eat, has a chill aura, and spirit sight. Do note that when they take a certain amount of damage, they shapeshift into like a giant form and have a little bit more HP and strength. I think these are just too overpriced for what they do, unfortunately. So you need a Death 2 guy and 12 Death Gems, and you only come out of that spell with 4 of these. For the same cost, I think I'd rather be getting Pale Riders, or not the same price, but more gem efficiency. I think I would rather get Pale Riders if I was going to go that route. These aren't bad, and I mean, they do have fear. Do note, none of our troops have frost resistance natively, so these would also be kind of hard to place into like a melee line. So, again, I'm just not in love with those. Finally, we have these Valkyries. I don't think these are that different, if they are at all, from our native troop. The big thing here would be it's a battlefield summon that summons in 7 Valkyries for 1 air gem. So, I don't know. The problem is you need to have air 3 and death 1. How many air 3 death 1 guys are we going to be getting here? If we look at our recruit guy here, we have a 1 in 20 chance, or no, we have a 20% chance that one of these slow to recruit cap only guys could get it. And that's not even true there. We have a 2% chance because it's air 3 and death 1. So we'd have to have storm up, and then we storm power on a 20% guy that has death. Like, this is getting convoluted very quickly. We're not going to have enough people to make summon Valkyrie a thing. It's too rare. If we look at my game here, let's see if we have anyone who can do it. Nobody in my main army can do it. At my capital, I have this guy, but he's short, so he would need to get a booster on or summon storm power, and he could spend 2 air gems to actually cast the spell. I do have the hero here, so that's one person who can do it. And this is on spring of year 4, and I'm 99% sure I didn't lose one of those guys. So, yeah, nobody down here. Yeah, nobody down here. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that is just too dang specific to be usable, frankly. For other magic of interest, as mentioned a few times, summon storm power and summon earth power from conjuration are pretty good, and I don't think we would mind supplementing our troops with whatever we can afford. Maybe that takes the form of air elementals if we have storm up. Maybe that's spending some nature if we could get a indie nature mage from somewhere. We could do storm drakes or griffins, or maybe save up for contact draconians. Those aren't too bad. Or springhawks. We could do all those natively. If you have a pretender that has glamour and nature, maybe we also go cold and we go for the unseelie knights. That could be a thing that would be pretty decent. So you'd be looking at right here at conjuration 5. 3 glamour and a nature for 15 gems gets you these knights, and they're pretty good if they're in heavy cold. So that's maybe a thing. In alteration, I do think we want alteration, and we probably rush alteration. At 4, we get Mistform. Mistform is very, very helpful to our Einhirs and to our Skin Shifters. Like, really helpful. Those huge armies I was looking at in the background here, most of those people were scripted to buff my line troops with Mistform. In this game, I tried to rush Wailing Winds, and it didn't really work out. I think rushing to 4 at least for Mistform and Twilight is a definite want. And maybe you go a little bit higher. 5 gets us to Storm. We wouldn't mind storming. Do note, if we do that, your Valkyries can't fly unless you took Fly and Storm Bless. This also would get us Arrow Ward, which we would really like because we don't do range particularly. and there are crossbows in Middle Era. We can also do Nightfall, but we don't natively have a lot of troops that can have dark vision or anything, and we don't have the nature to give it to them. We would like things like Shadow Warriors. This would be very helpful. Attacking units have their attack reduced by 2. Our protection or our defense is not the worst on our troops, so this would be something at least. That's not too bad. We can do this. We could do this if we wanted to. The thing I think I would want the most here is rushing all the way up to Army of Mist. I think this is a win condition, possibly. It does require Air 5 and 3 Air Gems. So even in Air 4, you'd have to be Air 4 to be able to cast this. You're natively not going to be able to do that very easily, but you could have somebody bring up Storm and then Storm Power 3 to 4, and then spend 4 gems to get this up. Or you would need to forge yourself an Air Booster. The Air Booster requires Air 4 to be able to craft, so that's going to be a little bit difficult. Maybe reachable, maybe worthwhile. Like I mentioned, I think this is probably a win condition for our berserkers or our skin shifters. Mist really helps them out. And I mean, this would be true for any army, but I feel like it's almost a necessity for us. In evocation, we might go with the lightning route, so lightning bolts or thunder strikes. But I think of those, I would rather probably go for glamour. We could do something like Cloud of Dreamless Slumber. That's relatively hard for a lot of nations to cast. We could do that pretty well. Sleep clouds are nothing bad about that. Ephemeral Blast. If you have Twilight up, you could boost yourself up to 3 with quite a few mages. That wouldn't be too bad. And the damage is good. It's armor negating and it's false damage. All good things there. Illusionary Army is very good. That's not too hard to cast again if we are getting Twilight up. I think that's worthwhile. But I think our win condition here is a combination of False Horrors and Wailing Winds at 7. Again, you're going to need the right guy to be able to do this. He's going to need to be at least Glamour 3, and then he could... Well, no, he's going to need to be Glamour 2, and then he gets Twilight from somebody, and then he can spend 3 gems to get himself up to Glamour 4 and pay the cost. Wailing Winds is a battlefield-wide continuous fear effect that can take you up to minus 10 morale. That is very strong. And what we would essentially do is use like mist to keep our troops alive, and we would count on the Wailing Winds to actually break the enemy. And this definitely does work, but now we're talking about, I mean, Twilight is Alt 4 plus Evo 7. That's not exactly quick for a nation that has expensive research mages that aren't like incredibly efficient or anything. So I don't know. That's a little bit of an oof there. Construction, I definitely think we rushed Construction 3. We have air income, and we have a dwarf who can roll into air, or we could just do it on our normal guys. Do note, remember, our crafter increases his own paths. He doesn't reduce the cost, but we could also craft ourselves some dwarven hammers at a discount from our national discount. So I think that's pretty good. And going up to Construction 5 means that we would be able to forge in boosters. So we look here. Winged Helmet, Air Magic 4, requires 25 air gems and gives you +1 air magic. Whoops. And you also would want to probably be looking at, I could totally get into Forge. I think you'd also want to be looking at Windbag here. This is Air Magic 2, and it gives you 1 temporary air gem. And I do think we're going to do a lot of things that we would like to have an air gem to spend on. Now, is this particularly efficient? I don't know. I don't know if you have a guy that has this bag and gets in 10 fights, but if you do, that's very efficient. And it gets you a free air elemental as a retinue. That doesn't hurt, especially if you're getting Storm up, because that'll empower him quite well. So that's a thing. As mentioned, owl quills are great, and there's some glamour items that are pretty good too. So the Dreamstone, this has to be glamour mages, but it only requires glamour 1 and 5 glamour gems, and it gives you 9 research. So one of our horsey boys with, I think he has 9 natively, so this doubles his research, and then you also could give him an Alquill. So you'd be looking at like 24 research per guy. Okay, now we're talking like really nice and efficient. However, that also means I've researched all the way up to construction 5. Now, that also has the side benefit of construction 5. Well, construction 6 gets you up to Legions of Steel. That is a battlefield wide +3 protection on pieces of worn armor. We do have relatively well armored troops, and this would take them from 16 to 19, much more respectable. So maybe this is another route to take. Maybe you rush construction 5, maybe you go to 6. If you go to 5 for your other things, you still have Soldiers of Steel, and that's 20 plus, and we can spam out dwarves from our capital. It's not like we can afford to spam Vandrots at 440 gold every other turn forever. So this isn't too bad, and that does, if you could make it there relatively quickly, and stacking out some Alquills and some Dreamstones built via guys who are using Dwarven Hammers, and then you use that to catch yourself up into something else. That's something. That's something. Now we're talking a little bit. In enchantment, this is going to give us things like Arrow of the West Wind, protection from lightning. We could cloud trapeze a lot of our guys. That's pretty handy. We could give our troops levitate soldiers. This makes it so you can't be grabbed by ground spells. Or you could give your troops, where are you? Mass flight. That'd be another pretty interesting one. You could mass flight berserkers into the background or something. Could be a thing. In thaumaturgy, I don't know if I'm feeling this. They did move luck to thaumaturgy, glamour thaumaturgy specifically. Also, despair is pretty decent. Another way we can frighten people. That would combo in with our wailing winds. If you are going to go for thuggy stuff, I do think you probably want to get personal luck at least. Pretty handy for your thuggy type people. Yeah, that's probably about it. So, like you can see, there's a couple things that are pretty good, but it requires a dang lot of research to get there. For a nation that's going to really struggle to get out those mages, like, I don't know. That's pretty rough there. Okay, let's bring all that together. So this is a nation that I think came out on the losing end of the changes from 5 to 6. We have very average troops that don't have a ton of standout that would be very good with mage support, but you are going to need a lot of mage support because you don't have the best research, so it's hard to get the large area of effect buffs that you really need for your troops. I don't remember what my battle looked like, but let's see if I had this scripted properly. Okay, this is just him attacking some dumb guy. All right, so this is not scripted 100% properly. I just reinforced into a siege here, but essentially I was having these lines of skin shifters, and then interspersed in my line were my casters, and they were spamming Mistform. So let's just kind of see how they buff up here. So I would love to get the area of effect one. As I mentioned, I rushed for Wailing Winds in this game, and it's not going to go off here because there's only one dude, but I was set up to do Wailing Winds with this army. So you're going to want to get lots and lots of Mistform, and with Mistform, these guys are really survivable. Like, really survivable. Now, admittedly, Uruk is not the best troops, but I was massacring these guys, and I was having like 0 to 2 losses in big battles once I had well covered mist buffing, because the regen plus that, if you're only taking 1 or 2 points of brown from Mistform, we can totally regen that every single turn. And when we go into werewolf form, we're still regenning. So that worked out pretty well. You can see here, I had everyone scripted for Mistform. Back here's my Valkyries, and they're getting Mistformed up, and they're on hold and attack rear. So these guys would go in and start hacking things up with their greatswords, hopefully just holding out, frankly, while the Valkyrs would go in and kill off the rear line. So that was my generic strategy here. It worked way better than originally I was thinking, okay, maybe I'll rush Storm and do Thunderstrike. it was mediocre at best, I would say, unfortunately. We are a nation that likes cold +1. Again, that's kind of awkward. Like, do we go cold 2 that we don't even really like and then risk having pop die? Do we go maybe neutral scales and just have things freeze and thaw? Maybe. We have these cavalry units that have pretty good map move, but they don't have snow move or flight. So we are affected by the snow. So again, I don't know about that. Not hugely in love. Now I will say, once I got to the point that we had Mistform and we had Wailing Winds, these thrones were super duper easy. Wailing Winds against most thrones is an auto win. You just need to live long enough to claim your victory. So that's a thing. I did get too cocky and I attacked this throne before I had Wailing Winds, and I killed like 2. Like nothing died here. They hit so hard they popped my Mistform just like instantly, and then I just retreated. So I lost an entire army to this throne and killed like 2 guys. So that was very unfortunate. So overall, not the best nation. I really can't find a way around that. If you know something I'm missing here, let me know. I just feel like what really is killing us is our mages are just too expensive. It would also be nice if we could get our dwarves outside of our capital. Like, if you look at my choices here, I'm basically going to spam Van Jarls from every other fort. And yeah, that's where all those things that you see came from. I had 1, 2, 3 forts that have been spamming nothing but those on repeat all for months and months and months. And that's where all those big caster armies came from. I've also only lost maybe 5 or 6 of them the entire campaign. So this is like the entire campaign worth of mages that you're seeing here. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at pretenders. Vanheim has the Norse set of gods, and unfortunately, that's a relatively limited pool here. We do come in with the Wolven Queen, and I don't like this chassis at all. 15 invulnerability is not enough to keep you alive. Maybe if she was immortal, that would be a little bit more interesting. She can shapeshift into a crone, but so what? I'm not in love with that. You have Frostfather. He's all right. For 100, you do get an air and a water to start you off, so that's good points for some sort of bless. Ditto here with the Svartov Mastersmith. This is the guy who shapeshifts into the, I think it's the Draken is the name, or the Lenomer, essentially. He's very close to this guy. Do note he has a big poison breath that will kill your own troops. So if you do decide to go Svartov Mastersmith way, be careful with how he's going to do that. We have the Eldest Dwarf. I do like him for being dirt cheap. 60 points, and that's it. This would be a good guy if you wanted to go Rainbow, and Rainbow Crafter specifically because he has Master Smith. That could be one route that you could take. We do have, as previously mentioned, the Lenomer is kind of a poison land dragon. He has Dragon Master, so if you did want to summon in some cave drakes, we could get natively. Draconians count for that. That has something there, but he's pretty pricey at 230 points. I don't know about that. We have Son of Fenrir. This could be okay. I do like that it comes with 1d6 Jotun Wolves, and those should be sacred, so they'll get whatever bless you have. So, while he's not the best solo expander necessarily, depending on your bless, that could be okay. Cold skill limit +1. I don't think we want to go super cold, so that's not particularly helpful. If we move up to Titans, again, I'm not sure any of these really blow my socks off. Ajna is interesting. She is a triple pathed Titan, and these are okay. Like, you could do Mistform, Cloud Trapeze, you could do Personal Iron Skin, Temper Flesh, Earth Power, the Glamour buffs. She's okay. She does have gear to get her started, so maybe she comes in as like a dormant, as like a protection Titan. We do have good crafting, so we could craft her up some better gear. Like, this stuff's okay, but it's just mundane stuff. She's okay, I suppose. We have the All Father. I will say he's interesting in that we have Astral, Death, and Glamour. Pretty good pathing for some of the blesses that we might enjoy. Keeper of the Bridge, not feeling that, if I'm being honest. The Divus of the Sun is a fire gem generator. We don't have great fire gem sinks, though, so I don't know what you're spending those on necessarily. We have Asnyaja. She has the Disease Healer. That could be useful. We might get some old age people and just diseases in general. But again, what else is she going to do? I'm not certain. The old trusty Demi Lich. There he is in all his glory. Moving up to our Dominion Force, we do have Irminsul. I do like him. He does have the starting site, which is a one nature gem generator. Even if he comes in imprisoned, you start the game with the site. That's kind of handy. And I do think we have a sync with the Sloth of Bears that is vaguely useful. Do note that requires 2 nature to be able to cast. So if you did like an imprisoned with him, somebody else is going to have to cast that. If you wanted to just go super duper cheap bless, he might not be terrible. 140, and you get the gem generation, and you raise your growth scale by 1, maybe. Idol of Sorcery, Idol of Beasts, Idol of Man. I'm not in love with any of those. Monolith, again, I think Monolith has good pathing depending on what kind of bless you want to take. Magic weapons, stone, like hard skin, maybe, or magic weapons, bark skin, maybe. But we have Earthcasters, so we could do our own protection buffs. Yeah. Yeah. Sacred Geyser, I think this one's all right. This would be your chassis if you wanted to do Fire Shield. I do think Fire Shield's pretty good for our Sacreds or quickness. That could be a thing. And the Fountain of Blood. I don't like him very much here either. So, as you can see, I'm just not super in love with our chassis choices. Let's take a look at what I did build and show you. So I made a few here. Let's look at Hot Shot. This is a fire shield quickness. He comes in it dormant. That hurts. We're not the worst, but we're not the best expanders either. I just accepted when I did this test run that I was going to have horrific Valkyrie losses until it came in. Once this did come in, this is a great bless for either one of our sacreds, and it works just fine on our mages if you do want to thug. Fire Shield, remember, got changed that it procs when you're attacked, not when you're hit. So our high defense, glamour type people can use Fire Shield very effectively. And quickness kind of works well with that because that raises our defense by 2. It also raises our attack by 2. So if you're using any of our sacreds who are using spears, then you have a better chance to repel. So this is a pretty potent buff, but look at the cost. We have 6 Dominion. I had to go Cold 2, and I went Misfortune 1, Magic 1. Now, you could refigure this around. I think you could probably maybe drop the Magic and get rid of the Misfortune, or drop the Magic and raise the Temps 1. I don't know. I do feel like we'd like a little bit of production, so maybe change the Magic for production. No, never mind, we can't because we require the Magic for quickness. I don't know. This was a bit greedy, but I did like the blessing once it was out and running. Next up, we have Little Duda. If you know Little Duda, F in chat for Little Duda. She's the disease healer. I brought her as a person who's gonna do the Fey summons. So ideally, we're shooting for the Unseelie Knights. Now, if we are gonna all in on that, maybe we actually take Cold 2 because we want to be in Cold with Unseelie Knights. And she at least has a little bit of skills here. I went 1 production, 2 growth, 1 fortune, 2 magic. So the idea here was we're going to try to climb up Conjuration and get those Fey units out sooner. This also would let us get gnomes, although gnomes are a little less useful. We have their pathing natively. The Bless was okay. Low light vision means that we can Twilight, and if we wanted to, Nightfall, and our Sacreds would not have that penalty. Blur kind of ties in with that, and Heroism is nice if you're gonna research with your sacreds. Once they level up, they get +1 research. So this helps them get to level 1 a little bit quicker. So this is like a very utility bless. Again, she comes in at dormant. She does have the disease healer, so that's something. I didn't like this one at all, though. I don't know if it was a bad test game or what, but this wasn't very good. So we end up on Old God Gramps. Old God Gramps here has one goal and one goal only. I'm going to research something as fast as inhumanly possible. So I went Astral 5, Earth 2, and the only thing we bought was magic weapons for our sacreds. So just a pure utility pick. He starts awake, and he ends up with 1 production, 1 fortune, and 2 magic. So again, pure concentrating on research. He does have Inspiring Researcher, and he himself has Adept Researcher plus 15. So with him, I would say you're gonna grab him. You're gonna bull rush to probably Army of Mist. Maybe you sidestep in and you start in construction, either 3 or 5, and then you go alt either 4 and then you cut over to Evo, or you go construction to taste and then you go all the way up to what was it, alt 7 or 8 for Army of Mist. And that is his one goal and one goal only, is to get there as fast as possible. And this is the test game I was showing you earlier. This is what I was using there. It has a little bit of scaling. I did get some decent gems from a couple events and a little bit of gold. I didn't get anything too crazy this round. You just never know with going fortune what you're going to get. It was definitely the strongest researcher of the 3 for sure. So I think you can hear from the tone. I don't know. I really don't know. This was the practical choice. I think that Hotshot here was the better blessing. Like, this was pretty good. And I like that it works equally well for both your leaders if you want a thug and your normal sacreds. Like, this is very potent for both our Valkyries and our horses, our cavalry. Quickness doesn't quite keep the horse alive, so you'd still really, really like to cast some kind of protection on them. But we're probably going to still go up alteration anyways, so a couple dwarfs giving stone skin out or something might be able to cover your buffing needs. All right, so in conclusion, middle-aged Vanheim, I feel, is one of the nations, at least so far from what I've covered, that took the hit of the changes from Dominions 5 to Dominion 6 the absolute worst. We have troops that are aggressively mediocre. We have a couple that are all right, but they need a lot of magic support. We have the mages who can do it, but they're incredibly expensive to recruit, and at best, they're barely efficient and they're slow efficient researchers. We can do blood sacrifices, but we have no other blood interest particularly, and we're not good blood hunters, and we're inefficient blood hunters. So that's another avenue that's kind of out. We do have a pretty decent crafter dwarf, but he's not like spectacular. We can get some low-hanging fruit, essentially. The half-price Dwarven Hammer is really nice. I will give that. That's a new thing that came in with the patch. So that's something. We have an interesting thing with the Fabor, but like, this isn't something you're gonna like have your whole strategy around, right? Like, you're not gonna. This isn't early age Merverni. You're not gonna drown the world in pork, unfortunately. And the Valkyrie's all right, but again, it's middle age now. It's not early age. It's time to grow up and stop pretending. I don't know. It's okay. And unarmored Fey Cavalry is just, it's so incredibly frustrating when you lose those. They're not cheap units, and all it takes is a stray arrow, and you're out walking home, hopefully, so that we can recruit a new guy for half price. That is a far fall from grace from the absolute craziness that Dom 5 was with Fey Cavalry. I'm super open on this one for tips and tricks that maybe other people have found. I even went looking as deep as I could in my regular sources, aka places like Clockwork Hounds or Lucid's server. And even on Lucid's server, where normally there's really long discussions about nations, There was a handful of comments about this nation. It's just people are not excited about this. Glamour, in theory, helps us out, and we do have some people who can make use of it. But again, it's just overpriced, and we're not spectacular at it. Like, if we had some Glamour 3s that we could recruit natively, or this guy was just Glamour 2 Blood 1, way, way better. Way, way better. And we have a little bit of air Glamour cross-pathing, but it's not, like, game-changing. Wailing Winds is nice, I'll grant you that, but you gotta survive long enough to do it, and you have to stay on the battlefield long enough for it to take effect. And we're not the best at doing either one of those things in a world that has middle-aged Ulm, or the hordes of undead from Asphodel or Urmor, or nations that can do better air than us, or more flyers than us, or heavier troops than us. Like, we're just not, we don't have that edge. Sailing, again, is nice, but we're not the only sailors. And I think other people have better sailing armies than we do. So, I don't know. I don't know. This is definitely going to be a bit of a challenge run. I could see this being one of those misery 8 to 10 hour streams for sure if things go sideways. Like, in the game here, I was fighting Uric from most of the game. They attacked me on turn like 6, like super duper early. And I've also was fighting Ind before they got pushed back. And now I'm fighting Uric, who I haven't been able to finish off, and Satis. And I'm buckling pretty hard because I only really have 2 functional armies. I have lost a bit in this war, but still, Uric is not the biggest force, especially in the hands of the AI. And the fact that I was struggling that hard was not great. It was not great. So leave me your tips, leave me your tricks. Maybe you can teach me something on this one. Maybe I'm missing something obvious, builders, but those are my thoughts here. Come join me. Apparently the streams where I suffer the most are the most popular, so you're not going to want to miss this one for sure. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like on it. That helps more than you know. If you are not already a subscriber, I hope this is the video that I've earned your subscription on. I'd love to have you join us in the comments or on stream. Come and hang out with us. Enjoy my misery for this one. And if you'd like to go above and beyond, we do have super thanks. If you join us in stream, you can do a super chat and I will read it out. And we have channel memberships where you can find videos as member first early bonuses. Videos like this, where the pregame videos normally go up about a week in advance. All right, builders, get out there and build a more efficient mage because, frankly, we desperately need it on Vanheim. I'm really looking forward to the comments on this one, so let me catch you down there, builders. All right, babble out.